All right, so welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about, LGBT identification trends in the U.S. today.
Right.
I found this Gallup news article.
Okay.
It was from 2022.
All right.
And it's called Growing LGBT ID Seen Across Major U.S. Racial Ethnic Groups. But one of the things that really jumped out at me was that Hispanic adults are actually now more likely to identify as LGBT than white or black adults.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. That's
kind of bucks the trend a little bit.
Well, yeah. And it makes you think,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
It does.
And so that's what we're going to try to unpack today.
All right.
I mean, first of all, the Gallup article, it highlights that LGBT identification is on the rise for pretty much everyone.
Across the board.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Non-Hispanic black, non-Hispanic white, and Hispanic adults are all more likely to identify as LGBT now than they were just a decade ago.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you'd expect that to be the case.
Right.
But it's good to see the data.
Yeah, it is good to see the data.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big,
It is.
kind of makes you feel like there's
this shift.
Yeah, there's this shift happening. More and more people are feeling comfortable embracing, openly identifying with diverse sexual orientations and gender identities.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, it points toward a society that's becoming more
Accepting,
inclusive,
Strengthening.
all those good things.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get back to this trend among Hispanic adults.
Okay.
Gallup found that LGBT identification within this group has been steadily climbing. It surpassed 8% in 2020.
Wow.
And then hit double digits in 2021.
Yeah. That's a pretty significant jump.
Yeah.
In just a year.
Yeah. And that's a faster rate of increase than we're seeing for both white and black adults.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
Well, one thing that comes to mind is that the Hispanic population in the U.S. tends to skew younger.
Oh, that's true.
Than other groups.
Yeah.
There are a lot more Gen Z and millennials in that group.
Makes sense.
And so younger generations are generally far more likely to identify as LGBT than older generations.
For sure.
So maybe it's not about being Hispanic, but more about being young and being part of a generation that's more open to diverse identities.
I see what you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So are you saying that white and Hispanic youth are equally likely?
Well, pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
When you compare young people across different races and ethnicities, you see that white and Hispanic youth are pretty much equally likely to identify as LGBT.
Interesting.
Black youth are slightly less likely, but the generational pattern is consistent across all groups.
So age is more of a factor
than
race or ethnicity.
Yeah, it seems to be. In fact, Gallup's analysis found that among older generations, those born before 1965, LGBT identification rates are pretty much the same for Hispanic, black, and white Americans.
So consistently low.
Yeah.
Across the board.
All hovering below 6%.
Wow.
So we're kind of seeing this massive
shift.
Yeah.
Generational
shift.
Right in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's reshaping the landscape of how people understand and express their identities.
This is really interesting.
Yeah.
But before we go too far, there are some limitations to this data.
Oh, okay. Like what?
Well, for instance, Gallup's research on Asian American adults is limited to English speakers only.
Oh, right. Because their surveys are in English or Spanish.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So that means they might not be accurately capturing
the experiences of
a good chunk,
a big part
of Asian American.
Of the Asian American community.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who don't speak English.
Yeah.
Right.
What about other groups?
Yeah. So what about
like Native Americans?
Native Americans, Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the sample sizes for those groups are too small for Gallup to draw any reliable conclusions.
Okay.
So there are definitely gaps in our understanding.
Makes sense.
Further research is needed.
Yeah, for sure.
To get a more complete picture
of
these trends.
That makes sense.
Across all racial and ethnic groups.
So what we're seeing is a very, dynamic picture. It's really evolving, and it's complex.
It is complex. We've got these overall trends of increasing LGBT identification, but it's layered with generational differences and the nuances of specific communities.
Exactly.
Exactly. So with that in mind, Let's take a closer look at some of those nuances and what they tell us about the evolving social landscape of the U.S.
Sounds good.
We'll delve into all of that in just a moment.
Okay. It's really fascinating to think about how this all plays out in the long run.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly when you look at the younger generations.
Right. Like, how will Gen Z impact everything?
Yeah. What happens
as they get older?
When they're running the show?
Yeah.
What's that going to look like?
Yeah. I mean, as they become a larger part of the adult population, their values, their experiences are inevitably going to shape social norms and expectations.
For sure.
So are we going to be looking at a future where diverse gender identities, sexual orientations are just part of everyday life?
Like it's just...
Like it's no big deal.
Yeah, like just who you are.
Right.
Like nobody bats an eye.
Yeah.
And that could have huge ripple effects.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
On everything.
Yeah.
I mean, even things like how we design public spaces.
Oh, wow, yeah.
To how we make laws and policies.
Right.
It's going to touch everything.
I mean, I'm already seeing changes happening.
Oh, yeah.
Like just in terms of, there's a growing awareness and acceptance of like gender fluidity and non-binary identities.
Yeah.
Especially among young people.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's reflected in like the language we use.
Yeah.
The media we consume.
Definitely.
The legislation that's being debated and passed.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's really... I don't know.
It's like a cultural shift.
Yeah, it feels like.
Right in front of us.
A cultural shift in real time.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see.
It's kind of cool to see young people leading the charge.
Oh, yeah. They're definitely at the forefront.
For greater inclusivity.
Yeah, it gives you hope for the future.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about these big picture trends. We've talked about how younger generations are kind of shaping things.
Right.
But I want to go back to that interesting finding about Hispanic adults.
Right.
Being more likely to identify as LGBT than white or Black adults.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Well, it's complex. I mean, there's no easy answer.
Right.
But one thing I was reading about is that it could be related to the cultural values of family and community that are often emphasized in Hispanic cultures.
So you're saying that might actually create a more supportive environment?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So like even if there are certain cultural norms or expectations, having that strong foundation of family and community could make it easier to kind of come to terms with and express.
Explore those feelings.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And to feel supported in that.
For sure. Because if you know your family's got your back, that makes a huge difference.
That makes a huge difference.
Especially when you're young.
Especially when you're figuring things out.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, this is just one theory.
Yeah.
We need more research to really understand this trend.
Yeah.
But it's a really compelling idea.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think it
shows you that you can't just look at these things in a vacuum.
Right.
There
are so many factors at play.
Exactly.
And it's really about how those factors intersect with individual experiences.
It's all connected.
So we keep talking about identity as being fluid.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to remember.
For sure.
It's not like a fixed static thing.
It's always changing.
Right. It evolves and it's influenced by
so many things.
All these factors we've been talking about.
Exactly.
So how do we make sense of these data points then? Like, are we just getting a snapshot of a particular moment in time? That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think it just shows that we need more research.
Yeah.
We need to keep collecting data.
Yeah.
We need to look at these trends over time.
Yeah.
To really understand what's happening.
Yeah, and like what's driving the changes.
Right, exactly.
It makes me think back to those limitations we were talking about. If we don't have data on certain groups.
Right.
Or if our methods aren't inclusive, we're only getting a partial picture.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, we need to make sure that we're being as inclusive as possible in how we collect this data.
And how we analyze it and interpret it.
It's not just about the numbers.
Right.
It's about the stories behind the numbers.
Right. So I guess some key takeaways for our listeners are...
What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, like what should they be thinking about?
Okay.
After listening to all of this.
Yeah, first of all, identity is complex.
It is.
It's personal.
It's personal.
You can't just put people in boxes.
Yeah.
You can't make assumptions.
Based on stereotypes.
Based on broad categories, right?
So it's really about recognizing that everyone's journey is unique.
Absolutely.
And there's no one-size-fits-all approach
Yeah.
to understanding this stuff.
And it's about listening.
Yeah.
Being open
to other perspectives.
to learning from people who are different from you.
Right.
Who have different experiences.
So I guess like education and empathy.
Yeah. Those are key.
Are really important.
We need to create spaces
where
people feel safe to be themselves.
To express themselves without fear of...
Exactly. Without being attacked for who they are.
Yeah.
That's so important.
It's so important.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how the media is portraying all of this. Like, how do you see the media, dealing with these shifts in LGBT identification?
The media is so powerful.
Yeah.
They can...
It can really shape.
Yeah, they can shape the narrative.
Yeah.
They can either reinforce stereotypes.
Right.
Or they can help break them down.
Yeah. And historically...
It hasn't always been great.
It hasn't been great.
No.
No.
But I'm starting to see some positive changes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's more of a push now to show more authentic, more diverse representations of LGBT characters and storylines.
Like in TV shows.
Yeah, in TV shows.
Movies, all of that.
Movies, yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
Like it seems that
it's getting better.
It feels like we're moving away from those
those one-dimensional...
one-dimensional...
stereotypical portrayals.
Yeah, and it's moving towards something that feels...
more real.
More real.
More relatable.
More relatable. Yeah.
And that's so important.
It is.
Because when people see themselves represented in a positive light, it can have a huge impact.
It can really...
how they feel about themselves.
Change people's lives.
Yeah.
It's about feeling seen.
Yeah.
Feeling validated.
Yeah. Representation matters.
Representation matters.
Yeah.
And it can also help people who maybe don't have a lot of experience with these issues.
Right.
It can help them to understand...
To build empathy.
Yeah, to build empathy.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the LGBT community. It's about society as a whole.
So we're seeing some positive stuff happening.
Yeah.
In terms of media representation. What about news coverage?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, how's that evolving?
Well, I think historically, news coverage has often been...
It's been kind of sensationalized.
Sensationalized.
Or focused on the negative stuff.
Yeah, like discrimination. Like all the bad stuff. Right. Not very balanced.
Not very nuanced.
No. But are you seeing any shifts there?
I am.
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing more news outlets that are reporting on these issues.
Okay.
In a way that's...
more balanced.
More informed.
More informed, yeah.
Yeah. Taking into account...
the complexities of these issues.
That's really encouraging.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it's a step in the right direction.
And hopefully that leads to greater understanding and acceptance among the general public.
That's what we want.
So this has been a really insightful conversation.
It has. I feel like we've really...
covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. Explored this whole topic of LGBT identification in the U.S., looked at the challenges, the opportunities.
Yeah, and where we're headed.
Yeah. And I think it's clear we still have work to do.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In terms of achieving...
full equality.
Full equality and justice.
Yeah.
For LGBT individuals.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's what we should be striving for.
But there are reasons to be optimistic.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I think, the fact that there is a growing visibility and acceptance of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's a really positive sign.
It is a positive sign.
And I think with continued dialogue, education, advocacy, we can create a world where everyone feels safe and respected and empowered to be who they are.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up,
I
do have one more question for you.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the positive aspects of these trends, but I think it's also important to acknowledge that this can be a difficult time for some people.
For sure.
There might be people out there whose own personal beliefs clash with these
evolving social norms.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so how do we as a society make space?
How do we have these conversations?
Yeah, how do we have these conversations in a way that's constructive and respectful?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think it starts with listening.
Yeah.
Really listening.
Listening with an open mind.
With an open mind, an open heart.
Yeah, like trying to understand where the other person is coming from.
Even if you don't agree with them.
Even if you don't agree with them.
Exactly.
Yeah, and recognizing that, everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah, everybody's at a different place.
And it's not about judging people for where they are on that journey.
It's about meeting people where they are.
Right.
And creating space for dialogue.
Yeah.
For understanding.
Even when there are differences.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember, too.
Yeah.
These conversations aren't just about,
abstract concepts or political ideology.
They're about real people.
They're about real people's lives.
Yeah. With real experience.
We have to remember that.
Yeah.
We can't lose sight of that.
So I guess as we move forward,
yeah,
let's just try to create a society where everyone feels seen, heard, respected, regardless of their
sexual orientation.
Yeah, sexual orientation or gender identity.
Beautifully said.
And let's do it with kindness.
Yes.
And compassion.
And a willingness to learn.
And a willingness to learn. Yeah. It's amazing to think about how much has changed, even in just the past few years.
Oh, yeah. It's been a whirlwind.
It really has.
Yeah.
And I think it just shows how important it is to keep these conversations going. Because,
dialogue is key.
Dialogue and advocacy.
Yeah. Being able to talk about these things openly is so important.
It really is a sign of progress.
It is, yeah.
But I also keep thinking about how complex this whole issue of identity is.
It is.
I know. It's not simple.
It's not simple at all.
Right.
And I think it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that everyone is experiencing these changes in the same way.
Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
And it's not.
No.
It's so easy to get caught up in the big picture trends and forget that there are
real people
behind those numbers, each with their own unique story and journey.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's where
empathy comes in.
Empathy and understanding are so important. It's about
really trying to see things from other people's perspectives.
Even if they're different from our own.
Yeah, even if you don't agree.
Yeah.
It's about respecting where people are at.
And recognizing that there's no white way.
Right. To navigate these questions of identity.
And there's no right way to feel.
And it's about creating that space.
Yeah, giving people space.
Where people can...
to figure things out.
Explore their own truth.
Yeah, at their own pace.
At their own pace.
Yeah.
Another thing that comes to mind is how heated these conversations can get. Yeah, they can get so heated.
Yeah.
Especially on social media.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started.
I know.
On social media.
It's like there's this pressure to take sides.
Pick a side.
Pick a side.
Yeah, you're either with us or against us.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's not helpful.
It's not helpful at all.
No, it just shuts down the conversation.
So how do we move beyond that?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
I think it starts with recognizing that most of us don't fit neatly into these boxes.
Yeah.
Right. We might have strong opinions.
Okay.
But we're also open to learning.
Changing our minds.
So it's about acknowledging the complexity.
Yeah. Embracing the gray areas.
The gray areas,
And remembering that at the end of the day, we're all human.
Yeah.
We all want to. We all want the same things.
Be loved, accepted, respected.
We want to be happy.
For who we are.
Exactly.
And I think that's something we can all connect with.
I think so too.
Regardless of our identities.
Our beliefs.
Our backgrounds, all of that.
Yeah, we're all just trying to figure things out.
This has been such a great conversation.
It has been.
We've really covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we've gone deep.
We have gone deep.
As the name of the show suggests.
Yeah, as the name suggests.
Yeah.
And so to our listeners, thank you for joining us for another deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
We hope you found this exploration of evolving identities in the U.S. as fascinating as we have.
Yeah, it's been a real eye-opening conversation.
So keep those conversations going.
Yeah. Keep learning, keep listening.
And keep an open mind.
Absolutely.
And until next time.
Yeah.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.